welcome to another edition of Abbey Research Reads. I'm Dr. Kristen, and today we are talking about the young adult Indian historical novel Ahimsa. Indian as in the Indian subcontinent, not Indian as in indigenous people in North America. The Indian subcontinent, it takes place in 1942. I'm reading the summary. It is by Supriya Kelkar. 1942, Mahatma Gandhi asks Indians to give one family member to the freedom movement. 10-year-old Anjali is devastated to think of her father risking his life for the struggle. Turns out he isn't going, her mother is. And with this change comes many more adjustments designed to improve their country and use ahimsa, nonviolent resistance, to stand up to the British government. First, the family must trade in their fine foreign-made clothes for homespun cotton, so Anjali gives up her prettiest belongings. Then her mother decides to reach out to the untouchables, the Dalit community. Anjali is forced to get over her past prejudices as her family becomes increasingly involved in this movement. When Anjali's mother is jailed, she has to step out of her comfort zone and continue her mother's work. For anyone who's been here before and you've heard us talk about empathy reads, I would imagine that this description tells you why I definitely think this is an empathy read. We talk a lot about Gandhi's nonviolence movement in worlds of conflict management, but honestly, we don't have enough conversations about what it actually meant for the day-to-day life of Indian people who joined his movement. And having this happen through the eyes of a 10-year-old girl is really enlightening. Because if it was an adult, you might get a little judgy that Anjali is really annoyed that she has to give up her pretty clothes. But like as a 10-year-old, you're like, of course she's annoyed because she doesn't really get it. She's not fully cooked. This is how it works. And it lets you realize that like you'd probably be pretty annoyed that you had to give up something too when you were a kid, whatever that favorite thing was. Because her clothes are like her favorite thing. It's a really important thing to her. And then the negotiations and the conversations and everything around the Dalits. Now, the caste system is technically illegal in India, but it still very much exists. And the Dalit population, the untouchables, are still very much known and talked about and popularized. Just because something isn't legal doesn't mean it's not real anymore. And I don't know what it would take to undo the caste system in India. And I've heard a lot of Indians and Indian Americans saying like they're not even sure it's possible or necessary, that maybe some reforms could be different instead of completely undoing it, because it's so tied to understandings of nirvana and incarnation and various faiths within the Indian system, both Hinduism and Buddhism, that it's like, why, like, and Jainism and Sikhism and some other things, like it would be very strange to just like completely get rid of it. But the pretending that it's gone is also not helpful or getting rid of. I digress. But for a Brahmin, which we are definitely led to believe that Anjali and her family are upper caste, for a Brahmin to be hanging out with the Dalit is revolutionary. And Anjali doesn't really know what that means, but truly it's a huge part of Ahimsa and this nonviolent resistance, the way forward for the Indian people. The Brits were terrible colonizers in a ton of ways because no one is a good colonizer. What they did in India is particularly insidious because of how they used the Indian people against each other, and then the way they left and how Pakistan and India were done. The Brits left other colonies better than they left India, if that makes sense. They left it, more quietly or less violently or whatever, but they were really hesitant to give up on India's natural resources. Really, really bitter about it happening. And it feels like when I read historical accounts of British citizens, especially at this time, it almost feels personal that the Indians didn't want to continue to be British in a way that like it didn't seem to feel that way with Kenyans or Malawians or, some other colonies. But it feels like really, 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 like it was very violent. It was emotionally violent. It was physically violent. The nonviolent movement was still socially violent in some ways. I mean, that's what nonviolence is. It's a social disruption. So anyway, fascinating read, really great. If you have any interest in resistance movements, nonviolent resistance, violent resistance, revolutions, anything else, this is a really great look into how it would work in the life and mind and family sphere of a child. So again, the book is Ahimsa. All the links are in the downstairs, so don't hesitate. I got it from my local library, so it would not surprise me if you could get it from your local library too. If you've enjoyed this review, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you love conversations about wider understandings of the world and how to really kind of grasp the differences in the world around you, you'll probably like a lot of the content on our sister page, our main page, Abbey Research, where Dr. Aaron and I spend multiple videos a week talking about how empathy is not emotional, and empathy is instead a consistent, intentional choice to choose understanding over assumptions. And we'd love to have you join us in that journey. The book that I read today, again, is called Ahimsa by Supriya Kelkar. It's a highly 2 thumbs up recommendation, and I'll see you next time on Abbey Research Reads. Until then, happy reading, everybody.